take nothing for the journey but a walking stick. No food, no sack, no money in their belts. They were, however, to wear sandals, but not a second tunic. He said to them, "Wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave. Whatever place does not welcome you or listen to you, leave there and shake the dust off your feet in testimony against them." So they went off and preached repentance. The 12 drove out many demons, and they anointed with oil many who were sick and cured them. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
In support of New Hampshire's new hands-free driving law, a church put a message out on their front lawn sign that read, "Honk if you love Jesus. Text while driving if you want to meet him." In today's gospel, we have a similar, by Jesus, we have some rules for the road. The disciples are going out 2 by 2 to every town and village to proclaim the kingdom, and Jesus gives them some guidelines as they go. A lot of those guidelines have to do with what to bring and what not to bring. Like a man after my own heart, Jesus tells them to pack light. Don't bring too much, because it's only going to weigh you down. It's only going to restrict your freedom. Rather, he tells them to bring nothing but a walking stick and rely completely on the providence of God. But actually, he tells them to bring one other thing other than a walking stick. He tells them to bring a friend. He sends them out 2 by 2. No one is to go alone. And that's a lesson for all of us in our own journey through life, our own faith journey, that none of us can do it on our own. We need good Christian friendships. We need the support of the community. This week, our community of faith welcomes 2 new friends. We have Sister Christina and Sister Helen from the Missionary Sisters of the Society of Mary. And just like Jesus, their order very wisely sends them out 2 by 2, so they have the support of each other. And Sister Christina is going to this morning explain a little bit about their work as modern-day missionaries. So, Sister Christina, welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sister Christina McLean, and I'm a Marist missionary sister. And to begin, I would first of all like to thank Father Matt for allowing us to be here today to talk with you, and also the Congregation of the Faith who organizes the missionaries to speak in the different parishes throughout the United States, actually. And also to you for allowing me to be here today and to talk with you. The Missionary Sisters of the Society of Mary, which is our congregation, were commonly known as the Marist Missionary Sisters. And we're a very small congregation of about 480 sisters, and we're widespread throughout the world in 24 countries. We work in South America, in Africa, in the Philippines, in Bangladesh, and many of the islands throughout the South Pacific. We also minister here in the United States and places of Europe, Rome, Australia, and New Zealand. We minister as teachers, as nurses, as social workers, retreat directors, and pastoral ministers in order to respond to the various needs in a particular country. My first mission was in South America, in Peru. I taught at the Marist Brothers School for 6 years, and then for 3.5 years I worked in various villages along the Amazon River, teaching and doing pastoral work. Later, as a teacher and as a pastoral counselor, my work took me to Africa, to Rome, to Bangladesh, and to many of the islands in the South Pacific. When I went forth as a young missionary, I felt I was going to give my life to help others, and I did. However, one of the things that I learned was that I received much more than I gave. I believe one of the greatest gifts as a missionary is that you share your life with different people of different cultures, and it helps you to begin to look at life differently. You begin to look at life through different lenses, and one's own values begin to shift. As a result, I felt my life became much richer and sometimes even much sadder because of what I had been able to share with others. The gospel today, I believe, is a marvelous gospel for a missionary. Father brought out how Jesus sent the disciples out 2 by 2. And I believe that is because we all need companions on our journey. But then Jesus tells the disciples not to take anything with them, only a walking stick. Well, as a missionary, I would say we went out with more than a walking stick. Very often, we took teaching aids or medicines or whatever to help us with our mission. However, when I looked at my experience throughout the different missions, and I looked again at this gospel, I thought, when Jesus said, take nothing but a walking stick, if I really did that, what would be the kinds of things I would need to walk with the people that I was being sent to? And these are just some of the things I came up with. First and foremost, I would certainly need a strong faith to rely on God and His providence. And that is the faith also that the disciples were being called to share with others. And then in order to do that sharing, I felt I would need a deep reverence for each person as unique, respecting their diversity and our cultural differences. As missionaries, we would need courage to risk standing with people in their struggle for justice amidst the violence and injustices in our world. We would also need a stance of nonviolence that comes from a belief that we can be peacemakers. We would need also a spirit of reconciliation, believing in our need to forgive and to be forgiven by both ourselves and others, and to stand with others in their need to be forgiven and to forgive. We would need compassion and mercy that would allow us to walk with the poor, the helpless, and the outcast of society, responding to their needs and sharing them, their life, and sharing their life with them. And also as Maris and as a society dedicated to Mary, as women going forth as missionaries, we wanted to also go forth with some of the qualities of Our Lady, so that we could be a little bit of her presence in our world today. To end with, what I would like to do is to share with you 2 stories about the last ministry that I was involved in. At the present moment, both Sister Helen and I are in administration. But before being called to administration, I was working in California, and you may think that's not much of a mission, but believe me, I think it is the mission that touched my heart the deepest. One of the things we try to do as missionaries is to keep abreast of what are the rising needs within society. And one of the things that we recognized was the whole, evil of human trafficking. And the many women and children, and also young boys and men, who who are trafficked throughout our world every year. When I first heard about it, we were told that there was 800,000 to 1 million that were trafficked each year. And that trafficking also goes on here in the United States. So 10 years ago, we opened a house in California so that when the women were rescued, they didn't have anywhere to go, that we would take them in. And so we have this house in California where we take in women who are victims of human trafficking. And I'd like to just quickly tell you the story of two. One is a woman who was a foreigner, and the other is one of our own American young children. The first one was the very first woman we had, and she came to us. She came from Korea, believing that she was coming to the United States for a better life, and that she was going to have a job here. That's what she was told before leaving her country. However, when she arrived here, she was put into prostitution, and she was brutally treated. I would say out of all the women that we had that passed through the house while I was there, she was probably the one who had been psychologically damaged the most. When they come in, we try to have them look at what are some of the goals and things that they want. And she had goals, but one of the goals she had was to become a Christian. And she had already she had started to study the Bible with a Protestant group, a Presbyterian group, and she wanted to continue that. So we found a Protestant Presbyterian church where they spoke Korean because she didn't have the English. And it was the only thing, out of all her goals, it was the only one that she somehow was able to keep. But she was extremely dysfunctional, couldn't keep a job, couldn't learn the language, and I wondered if she would ever make it. When she left our house, she was still extremely fragile, and she just went from one thing to another. But then about 2 years ago, I received a telephone call, and it was from another one of the women who was at the house when she was there. And she said, "I have a surprise for you." And I said, "What's that?" And she passed the phone to somebody, and it was this young woman. And she told me that she had been healed. And so anyway, I went to see her, and I met a beautiful young woman who had her own business and was doing very well. And I said to her, "Who helped you heal?" And she said, "Nobody." I said, "Nobody?" She said, "No. Jesus helped me to heal." I said, "Tell me how Jesus helped you to heal." And she said, "You remember me?" And her English was still very bad. And I said, "Yes." And in her broken English, she said to me, "Do you remember in my heart everything exploded?" I said, "Yes." You could never really try to get her into anything because she would not obey any rules or regulations, because she kept saying, "Nobody will ever control my life again. Nobody will ever control my life again." She said, "Jesus helped me to see that my problem was not out there. My problem was here in my heart. And I had to forgive, and I had to get rid of my anger." And she said, little by little, Jesus helped me do that. And the next day, she was with her friend, and she was just her friend told me she was just a very grateful person. But before I left her, she came and she said to me, "I have something for you." And she gave me an envelope. In the envelope was $50 and a little note, little piece of paper like this.
with 2 little girls, and it said, in broken English, "Me thank you for your help. I wish you good health and God's love. I love you," and her name. I think it is one of the gifts that I treasure the most, and I carry it in my missal because it shows how God can work in somebody's life. Okay, so that was one. And then quickly, the other was an American girl who came, and she had been put out into prostitution, had been, all her self-confidence and everything had been taken from her. And she arrived at our place. She was a very bright young woman. And so she went to train to be, a pharmacist assistant. Topped the class, and a week before graduation left. And then, about a month or so later, she called again, asked if she could come back. She said, "I think I can make it this time." Came back, lasted 4 days, left again. Came back a third time, called and asked if she could come back a third time. The third time, she made it. Okay? And this is, for these women, we have all kinds of help in California to help them with their psychological problems and everything. But anyway, and about 2 years ago, I got an email from her. She's married, happily married. She has 2 children. And she said, "I thank you and the sisters for bringing me to God's doorstep, because there I have received healing." And she said, "God has given me the most precious gift I could ever have." She said, "I have 2 children. And she said, "I can't believe that God has entrusted me with these children, but I thank Him every day." Okay? And she is now studying for her PhD to be a child psychologist. So if you wonder where your assistance would go, it goes into different projects that we have to help people throughout the world. And Father brought out today that we are missionaries. But you know, we are all missionaries by our baptism. And I was sent to other countries, but you are sent as a missionary to your family, to your neighborhood, and to your workplace, and here in your parish. And by our baptism, we are all called, each one of us, and sent. But called and sent to do what? We're called and to share our faith and God's love with others. We are sent to be instruments of mercy to those who come into our lives. And I believe we are called to be signs of hope in our world today. And so if you can share in our ministry through your finances and a donation, that is wonderful. But if you can't, the one thing that you can share in is through your prayer to help us in our ministry, that we can continue to share God's love with others. Thank you.
Taking up a second collection today for the work of the sisters, and we do ask you to each